Husband locked his pregnant wife in a car and walked away with his mistress. A millionaire did this. Husband locked his pregnant wife in a car and walked away with his mistress. A millionaire did this. The soft glow of crystal chandeliers cast elegant shadows across the white tablecloth as Sarah watched Noah study the wine menu. Le Petit Jardin was their special place, the restaurant where they'd celebrated every anniversary for the past 5 years. Tonight marked their 6th. Sarah smoothed her navy silk dress, a recent purchase for this occasion. The fabric whispered against her skin as she shifted in her leather chair, trying to catch Noah's eye. He remained focused on the wine list, his dark brows furrowed in concentration. The sommelier recommended the Bordeaux, Sarah offered, breaking the silence. He said it pairs perfectly with the duck confit. Noah finally looked up, offering a quick smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Good choice. He signaled the waiter, ordered the wine, then immediately pulled out his phone, his fingers tapping rapidly against the screen. Sarah studied her husband's sharp profile in the romantic lighting. His custom-tailored suit fit his athletic frame perfectly, and his usually warm brown eyes reflected the flickering candlelight. Yet something felt off. The comfortable silence they once shared had grown heavy with unspoken words. The waiter returned with their wine, performing the traditional tasting ritual. Noah barely looked up from his phone, giving a distracted nod of approval. Sarah felt a familiar knot forming in her stomach, the same sensation she'd been experiencing more frequently over the past few months. "Remember our first anniversary here?" she asked, trying to recapture the warmth of earlier times. "We could barely afford the appetizers, but you insisted on ordering champagne anyway." Noah's lips curved into a genuine smile for the first time that evening. "We ate ramen for a week after that." He put his phone down, reaching for his wine glass. Things have changed quite a bit since then. Indeed, they had. Noah's tech company had exploded in growth 3 years ago, catapulting them from their modest apartment to their current mansion in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. Success had brought them everything they'd dreamed of during those early struggling years. The appetizers arrived, delicate portions of foie gras and truffle-infused escargot arranged like artwork on fine china. Sarah remembered how they used to share every bite, feeding each other across the table, laughing at their attempts to pronounce the French menu items correctly. Tonight, they ate in silence, broken only by the gentle clink of silverware and the murmur of conversations from nearby tables. Noah's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, his jaw tightening slightly before he turned it face down. "Is everything okay at work?" Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice light. "You seem preoccupied." "Just the usual challenges," Noah replied, taking another sip of wine. "The Singapore deal is proving more complicated than anticipated." Sarah nodded, though she noticed he wouldn't meet her eyes. There was a time when he would have shared every detail of his business dealings with her, seeking her opinion, valuing her insight. Now, his answers were becoming increasingly vague, dismissive. Their main courses arrived: duck confit for Sarah, Wagyu beef for Noah. The presentations were stunning, but Sarah found herself picking at her food, her appetite diminished by the growing distance between them. She watched as Noah mechanically cut his steak into precise pieces, his movements efficient, but lacking their usual enthusiasm for the fine dining experience. The evening continued with polite conversation about safe topics: the weather, their recent home renovations, plans for the upcoming holiday season. Yet Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. Noah's responses were cordial but distracted, his attention repeatedly drawn to his phone or lost in thought. As they finished their dessert, a shared crème brûlée that Noah barely touched, Sarah tried one last time to connect. Maybe we could take that trip to Tuscany we've been talking about. Just the two of us, like we planned? Maybe, Noah replied, non-committally, signaling for the check. Let's see how things play out with work first. The drive home was quiet, the city lights streaming past their luxury car windows like distant stars. Sarah watched Noah's profile as he drove, his expression unreadable in the darkness. The evening that should have been a celebration of their love and journey together had instead left her with an unsettling emptiness, a growing awareness that something was slipping away, even if she couldn't quite name what it was. Sarah's hands trembled as she arranged the tiny white onesie on their bed, positioning the pregnancy test beside it. After 3 years of marriage, this moment felt surreal. She checked her phone. Noah would be home any minute. The sound of the garage door opening made her heart race. "Noah?" she called out, her voice wavering with excitement. "Could you come upstairs for a minute?" Footsteps echoed through their marble foyer, followed by the familiar sound of Noah's briefcase hitting the kitchen counter. "Be right there," he called back, his voice carrying a note of exhaustion. Sarah smoothed her sundress, taking deep breaths to calm her nerves. This was supposed to be one of the happiest moments of their lives. She'd imagined this scene countless times, Noah's face lighting up, him wrapping her in his arms, both of them crying tears of joy. The bedroom door opened, and Noah loosened his tie as he walked in. "What's up? I've got a conference call in 20 minutes. "I have something to show you," Sarah said, gesturing toward the bed. She watched his face carefully as his eyes fell on the display she'd arranged. Noah stared at the items for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he gave a brief smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You're pregnant?" Sarah nodded, tears welling up. "We're going to have a baby." She stepped toward him, arms outstretched, but he remained rooted in place. That's great news," he said, but his tone lacked the enthusiasm she'd expected. He ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture she recognized as a sign of stress. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, letting her arms drop to her sides. "I thought you'd be more excited." "Of course I am," Noah replied quickly, though his eyes darted to his watch. "It's just been a really intense day at work. The Singapore deal is at a critical stage, and I've got back-to-back meetings." Sarah nodded, trying to push down her disappointment. "I understand. You must be stressed. Maybe we can celebrate properly this weekend?" "Yeah, sure," Noah said, already pulling out his phone. His fingers moved rapidly across the screen as he spoke. "Listen, about that conference call, I should probably prepare for it. We can talk more later, okay?" Before Sarah could respond, his phone buzzed. Noah's expression changed as he looked at the screen, a slight smile playing at his lips, more genuine than the one he'd given her moments ago. He turned away, typing out a response. Sarah sat on the edge of their bed, next to the carefully arranged announcement that now seemed silly and overdone. The joy she'd felt just minutes ago deflated, replaced by a gnawing sense of unease. She watched as Noah paced the room, completely absorbed in his phone conversation. "No, that works perfectly," he said into the device, his voice animated in a way it hadn't been during their interaction. "I can meet you there. Yes, tomorrow works." Sarah picked up the onesie, running her fingers over the soft fabric. She'd imagined them shopping for baby clothes together, decorating the nursery, sharing their hopes and dreams for their child's future. Instead, Noah was across the room, his back to her, still engaged in his phone conversation. The evening stretched on, with Noah moving between their home office and the bedroom, constantly on his phone. Sarah prepared dinner alone, the special meal she'd planned now seeming unnecessary. When Noah finally joined her at the dining table, his phone remained next to his plate, drawing his attention every few minutes. She tried making conversation about the pregnancy, her first doctor's appointment, ideas for the nursery, but Noah responded with distracted nods and one-word answers. Each attempt at connection met with the same wall of indifference, until Sarah finally fell silent, pushing her food around her plate as the weight of loneliness settled over her. Sarah stood at their kitchen window, watching the sun set behind the city skyline. Her hand absently rested on her still flat stomach as she checked her phone for what felt like the 100th time that day. No messages from Noah. Again. The pasta she'd prepared for dinner had long since gone cold. It was nearly 8 o'clock, and Noah hadn't answered any of her texts asking when he'd be home. This had become their new normal over the past few weeks. Empty conversations, cold dinners, and a growing distance that felt like a chasm between them. Her phone buzzed, and she quickly grabbed it, hope rising in her chest. But it was just Amanda, her closest friend since college. "How are you holding up?" Amanda's text read. Sarah's fingers hovered over the keyboard. How could she explain the loneliness that had settled into their home? The way Noah's eyes seemed to look through her rather than at her. "I don't know what to do anymore," she typed back. "It's like he's completely shut down since I told him about the baby." "Men sometimes need time to adjust to big news," Amanda replied. "James was the same way when I got pregnant with Tommy. Give him space, he'll come around." Sarah sighed, setting her phone down. Everyone said the same thing. Be patient, give him time, don't push too hard. Her mother had reminded her that men process things differently. Her sister insisted it was just first-time father jitters. Even her normally outspoken cousin Lisa had advised her to focus on taking care of herself and let Noah work through his feelings. The garage door hummed to life, and Sarah straightened up, quickly wiping away the tears she hadn't realized were falling. Noah's footsteps echoed through the house, accompanied by the familiar sound of his briefcase hitting the counter. "You're home late again," Sarah said softly, trying to keep any accusation out of her voice. "The Morrison account needed attention," Noah replied without looking up from his phone. His tie was loose, his usually perfectly styled hair slightly disheveled. "I made dinner," she offered. "I can heat it up for you." "Already ate at the office?" He still hadn't met her eyes. Sarah took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "Noah, can we talk? Please?" He finally glanced up, but his eyes were distant, like he was looking through her. "About what?" "About us, about the baby, about how you've barely spoken to me in weeks." Her voice cracked slightly. "I feel like I'm losing you, and I don't even know why." Noah's jaw tightened. "You're being dramatic. I've just been busy with work." "Too busy to answer a text? Too busy to have dinner with your wife?" Sarah stepped closer to him. "You used to call me on your lunch breaks just to hear my voice. Now I'm lucky if I get a one-word response to my messages." "The Singapore deal is at a crucial stage," he said, his tone dismissive. "The office needs me right now." "And what about what I need?" Sarah's hands trembled. "What about what our baby needs?" Noah's phone buzzed, and his attention immediately shifted to the screen. A slight smile crossed his face before he quickly suppressed it. "Listen, I've got some emails to handle. Can we talk about this another time?" Before Sarah could respond, he was already walking toward his home office, phone pressed to his ear. The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving Sarah alone in the kitchen with her cold pasta and unanswered questions. She sank into a chair at their dining table, her mind racing. This wasn't just about work or adjusting to impending fatherhood. There was something else going on. The late nights, the secret smiles at his phone, the emotional distance that seemed to grow wider each day. Deep in her gut, Sarah felt that she was missing something important, something that would explain why the man she loved was slipping away from her. Sarah smoothed down her emerald silk dress as she navigated through the crowded ballroom of the annual Children's Hospital Foundation gala. The chandelier light caught the diamond bracelet Noah had given her last Christmas, back when things were still good between them. She absently touched her barely showing pregnancy, a habit she'd developed lately when feeling anxious. "Sarah? Oh my God, is that you?" The voice was familiar, though Sarah couldn't immediately place it. She turned to find a stunning woman in a fitted red dress approaching her with a brilliant smile. Recognition dawned slowly. Bianca Martinez, Noah's college girlfriend. Sarah had seen her in old photos, but they'd never actually met. "Bianca, hi?" Sarah managed, hoping her smile appeared genuine. "What a surprise to see you here." "I'm on the planning committee this year," Bianca explained, her perfectly manicured hand gesturing to the elaborate decorations around them. "Noah didn't mention you'd be attending tonight." Something in Sarah's chest tightened at those words. "Noah mentioned he'd be here?" "Oh, you know how these tech circles are. Everyone knows everyone's business." Bianca's laugh tinkled like crystal. "We bump into each other at events now and then. He's always talking about you." Sarah doubted that. Noah barely talked to her these days, let alone about her. She watched as Bianca's dark eyes swept over her figure, lingering briefly on her midsection. "And I see congratulations are in order," Bianca said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "You're first, right?" Sarah nodded, unconsciously resting her hand on her stomach again. "Yes, we're due in about 6 months." "How wonderful." Bianca took a sip of champagne. "Noah always said he wasn't sure about having children. Funny how things change." The comment landed like a slap. Sarah hadn't known that about Noah. He'd always seemed enthusiastic about starting a family when they'd discussed it. Or had she just seen what she wanted to see? "Things do change," Sarah agreed quietly, scanning the room for her husband. She spotted him near the bar, deep in conversation with some investors. "He looks good tonight, doesn't he?" Bianca commented, following her gaze. "That suit always was my favorite on him." Sarah's discomfort grew. There was something about the way Bianca said it, as if she still had some claim on Noah's appearance, on his choices, as if their shared past wasn't quite as past as Sarah had been led to believe. "I should probably go find him," Sarah said, starting to step away. "Oh, don't worry about interrupting." Bianca touched her arm lightly. "Those conversations can go on forever. Come, let me introduce you to some of the committee members." For the next 30 minutes, Sarah found herself trapped in polite conversation with Bianca's social circle, all while hyper-aware of Noah's location in the room. She noticed when he finished with the investors, when he moved to the appetizer table, when he checked his phone with that small smile she hadn't seen directed at her in months. Finally excusing herself, Sarah made her way toward her husband. But before she could reach him, Bianca suddenly appeared at his side. Sarah stopped, watching as Noah's face lit up with genuine pleasure, an expression she hadn't seen in weeks. They fell into easy conversation, their body language speaking of familiarity and comfort. Bianca touched Noah's arm as she spoke, and he didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned in closer to hear her over the music. When Bianca said something that made Noah throw his head back in laughter, Sarah felt her stomach twist. There was an intimacy to their interaction that couldn't be explained away by old friendship. The way they angled toward each other, the shared glances, the private jokes, it all spoke of something deeper, something current. Standing alone in the crowded room, Sarah felt the foundation of her marriage shift beneath her feet. The distance she'd been feeling from Noah suddenly had a face, a name, and a red dress that fit like a second skin. Sarah's heels clicked against the marble floor of their foyer as she followed Noah into their home after the gala. Her heart pounded, each beat carrying the weight of everything she'd witnessed tonight. The house felt different somehow, colder, despite its modern luxury and carefully curated decor. "Noah, we need to talk." Her voice wavered slightly, but she pressed on. "About Bianca." Noah loosened his tie, not bothering to turn around. "What about her?" "I saw you two tonight." Sarah moved to stand in front of him, forcing him to acknowledge her presence. "The way you were together, it wasn't nothing." "Don't start this, Sarah." He tried to step around her, but she blocked his path. "Don't start what? Asking why my husband seems more comfortable with his ex-girlfriend than with his pregnant wife?" The words came out sharper than she intended, weeks of bottled emotions finally spilling over. Noah's jaw tightened. "You're being ridiculous. Bianca and I run in the same social circles. We're friends. That's all." "Friends?" Sarah let out a bitter laugh. "Friends don't look at each other the way she looks at you. Friends don't share inside jokes while completely ignoring their spouse's presence. You're overreacting." He walked past her to the bar cart, pouring himself a generous measure of scotch. "This pregnancy is making you emotional." The dismissal stung like a physical blow. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly feeling small in her expensive evening gown. "Don't do that. Don't make this about my hormones when you know something's wrong between us." "Nothing's wrong," Noah insisted, taking a long sip of his drink. "You're creating problems where there aren't any." "Creating problems?" Sarah's voice rose. "You've barely touched me since I told you about the baby. You work late every night. You don't answer my calls. And tonight, I watched you laugh more with her in 5 minutes than you have with me in weeks." Noah set his glass down with more force than necessary. "I'm under a lot of pressure at work. The market's volatile, investors are nervous. I don't need this right now." "And what about what I need?" Sarah's eyes burned with unshed tears. "I need my husband. I need the man who promised to be my partner, who wanted to start a family with me. Where is he?" "He's right here, dealing with real problems while you obsess over nothing." Noah's voice took on that patronizing tone she'd grown to hate. "Bianca is a business connection. She's on several foundation boards that could be valuable to our interests." "Our interests?" Sarah challenged. "Or yours?" "They're the same thing, Sarah. Everything I do is for our future, for our family." He gestured around at their luxurious home. "All of this doesn't just happen by itself." "I don't care about all of this." Sarah's hand swept through the air, encompassing their expensive surroundings. "I care about us, about our baby, about the fact that my husband can't even look me in the eye anymore." Noah's face hardened. "You're being hysterical. This conversation is over." "No, it's not. You can't just—" "Yes, it is." His voice cut through her protests like ice. "I have an early meeting tomorrow. I don't have time for unfounded accusations and pregnancy-induced paranoia." Sarah stood there, stunned by his coldness. The man before her bore little resemblance to the one she'd married, the one who'd once held her hand through entire dinner parties, who'd whispered jokes in her ear and made her feel like the only person in the room. "Fine," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Keep telling yourself that's all this is." She turned away, her designer dress swishing around her legs as she headed for the stairs. Each step felt heavier than the last, weighted down by the realization that her perfect life was starting to crumble. In their bedroom, she could hear Noah pouring another drink downstairs. "It will get better," she whispered to herself, but the words rang hollow in the empty room. Deep down, she knew the cracks in their marriage weren't just appearing, they'd been there all along. She'd just been too afraid to see them. Sarah paced the marble floors of their foyer, waiting for Noah to return home. The sun had already set, casting long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Her phone displayed 9:47 p.m., hours later than he'd promised to be home. When headlights finally swept across the driveway, she steadied herself. The front door opened, and Noah strode in, his suit jacket slung over his shoulder. "Where have you been?" Sarah asked, her voice tight with tension. "Working late." He didn't meet her eyes as he placed his keys on the console table. "You should be resting." "Don't." Sarah stepped closer. "Don't pretend you care about my rest when you've been ignoring me for weeks." Noah loosened his tie. "Not this again." "Yes, this again." Sarah's hand instinctively went to her stomach. "I'm carrying your child, Noah. Our child. And you act like we don't exist." "I need some air." He turned toward the door. "No." Sarah grabbed his arm. "We need to talk about this. About us. About Bianca." Noah's expression darkened. "Let's take this outside." Sarah followed him to their Mercedes, parked in the circular driveway. The night air was cool against her skin as Noah opened the passenger door. "Get in," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Sarah slid into the leather seat, expecting him to join her on the driver's side. Instead, he slammed her door shut. The lock clicked. "Noah?" She pulled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "What are you doing?" "You need to calm down," he said through the window. "Think about what you're saying. Think about our reputation." Sarah's heart pounded. "Open the door, Noah." Another set of headlights illuminated the driveway. A sleek black car pulled up, and Sarah's stomach dropped as Bianca stepped out, looking polished in a fitted dress. "Noah!" Sarah banged on the window. "Let me out!" He ignored her, walking toward Bianca with an ease she hadn't seen in months. They exchanged words she couldn't hear, then shared a laugh that cut through Sarah like a knife. "You can't do this!" Her voice cracked as she watched Noah open Bianca's car door. "I'm your wife." But Noah wasn't listening. He slipped into the driver's seat of Bianca's car, and they drove away, leaving Sarah alone in the locked Mercedes. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's hands shook as she tried her phone. Dead. Of course it was dead. She'd been waiting for Noah's call all day. Panic clawed at her chest. She was trapped, pregnant, and alone. The luxury car that had once symbolized their success now felt like a cage. The leather seats that still smelled new seemed to mock her with memories of happier times. Weekend drives along the coast, Noah's hand resting on hers between gear shifts. Minutes ticked by. Sarah's breathing gradually steadied, but something else was building inside her. The initial shock gave way to anger, not just at Noah, but at herself. How long had she been making excuses for him? How many times had she smiled through his absences, defended his behavior to friends, convinced herself that his success required sacrifices? She looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman staring back at her seemed different somehow. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright with unshed tears and something else. Determination. With sudden force, Sarah slammed her fist against the steering wheel. The horn blared into the night, and the sound was satisfying. She hit it again and again, letting out years of suppressed frustration. "Enough," she whispered, then louder. "Enough!" The word echoed in the car's interior. She'd spent years being the perfect wife, supporting Noah's dreams while setting aside her own. She'd believed in their marriage so completely that she'd lost sight of herself. The baby kicked, as if in agreement. Sarah placed her hand over the spot, feeling the movement that reminded her she wasn't truly alone. She wasn't just Noah's wife anymore. She was going to be a mother. And she needed to be stronger than this. The digital clock on the dashboard blinked 10:23 p.m. Sarah watched each minute tick by, her mind racing through memories of her marriage like scenes from a movie she'd watched too many times. There was the night they met in college. Noah, charming and ambitious, had swept her off her feet with grand dreams and promises. She remembered putting her own business plans on hold to support his career, telling herself it was temporary. Just until he got established, she'd said. Just until they were stable. The leather seat creaked as she shifted, trying to find a comfortable position. Her hand absently traced the smooth surface of the armrest. Genuine leather, Noah had proudly pointed out when they bought the car. Everything in their life had to be the best, the most expensive. Image was everything to him. "I used to paint," she whispered to herself, the words hanging in the still air. She hadn't touched a brush in 3 years, her art supplies gathering dust in the garage. Noah had called it a hobby, suggesting she focus on more practical pursuits. The baby kicked again, stronger this time. Sarah smiled, remembering her dreams of opening an art therapy studio for children. She'd even written a business plan during college, but it sat buried in a drawer somewhere, forgotten under the weight of Noah's ambitions. Her phone lay dead on the passenger seat, a stark reminder of her isolation. But in that isolation, something was awakening. The quiet of the car became less suffocating and more contemplative. Each breath felt like clearing away years of compromise and self-doubt. "I don't need him," she said aloud, testing the words. They felt foreign at first, then surprisingly right. "I don't need this life." She thought about their joint accounts, the prenup she'd signed, the house in his name. Noah had always insisted on controlling their finances, for tax purposes, he'd said. Now she saw it for what it was. Control. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting shadows across the dashboard. Sarah reached into her purse, fishing out an old bobby pin she kept for emergencies. Her hands trembled slightly as she examined the car door's lock mechanism. "Think, Sarah," she muttered. "You used to be resourceful before you became Mrs. Noah Parker." She remembered Katie telling her once about getting locked out of her apartment and using a bobby pin to get in. Katie, who had warned her about Noah's controlling tendencies years ago. Katie, who never judged, only supported. Sarah worked the pin into the lock, her movements becoming more deliberate as determination replaced fear. The first attempt failed. So did the second. By the third try, sweat beaded on her forehead. "Come on," she whispered, jiggling the pin. A click echoed in the quiet car. Sarah's heart leapt as she pushed the door open. The night air rushed in, cool and sweet with freedom. She stumbled out, legs shaky from sitting so long, but her mind was clearer than it had been in years. In her purse, she found her portable charger, another just-in-case item she'd started carrying when Noah's late nights became frequent. She plugged in her phone, waiting for it to gather enough charge to make a call. The numbers on her phone glowed. 10:47 p.m. Late, but not too late for Katie. Her friend answered on the second ring. "Sarah, are you okay?" "No," Sarah said, her voice stronger than she expected. "I'm not okay, but I will be. Can you come get me?" "I'm already putting my shoes on," Katie replied without hesitation. "Tell me where you are." As Sarah gave her address, she felt something unfamiliar in her chest. Not the usual anxiety or fear, but a surge of power. She was done being the perfect, passive wife. Done watching her dreams collect dust while Noah chased his ambitions with another woman. "I'll be there in 15 minutes, Katie promised. "Just hang on." "I will," Sarah said, and for the first time in years, she truly meant it. Sarah sat in the reception area of Morrison and Associates, her fingers nervously smoothing the fabric of her dress. The office buzzed with quiet efficiency, phones ringing softly, the gentle hum of conversation behind closed doors, the click of heels on polished hardwood floors. Everything about the place spoke of competence and discretion. Her hand drifted to her stomach, now showing a slight bump at 14 weeks. The baby had become her anchor in the storm of the past few weeks. Since that night in the car, she'd been staying with Katie, sleeping in her spare room and trying to piece together what remained of her life. "Mrs. Parker?" A woman in a crisp navy suit appeared. "Mrs. Morrison will see you now." Sarah followed her down a hallway lined with abstract art, each step feeling heavier than the last. The lawyer's office was warm and inviting, with large windows overlooking the city. Jennifer Morrison, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and an air of quiet authority, rose from behind her desk. "Sarah, please, have a seat." Jennifer gestured to a comfortable chair. "Katie told me about your situation. I'm so sorry you're going through this." Sarah sank into the chair, clutching her purse like a shield. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice." "Of course." Jennifer settled back in her chair, notepad ready. "Before we discuss specifics, I want you to know that everything we talk about is completely confidential. This is a safe space." Sarah nodded, her throat tight. "I'm not sure where to begin." "Start with what you want," Jennifer suggested. "Not what Noah wants, not what others expect. What do you want?" The question caught Sarah off guard. For so long, her wants had been secondary to Noah's needs, his ambitions, his image of their perfect life. "I want—" She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I want to be free. I want to create a life for myself and my baby that isn't controlled by someone else's whims." Jennifer made a note. "Let's talk about your current situation. Joint accounts? Properties?" "Everything's in Noah's name except for one savings account I opened last year." Sarah pulled out a folder of documents she'd gathered. "The house, the cars, the investments, it's all his. He insisted it was better for tax purposes." "And the prenup?" Jennifer asked gently. Sarah's chest tightened. "I signed it. I was 24, in love, and thought we'd be together forever. It seemed reasonable at the time." Jennifer reviewed the document, her expression neutral, but her eyes sharp. "This is quite restrictive, but there are several clauses that may work in our favor, especially given your pregnancy and the circumstances of his abandonment." For the next hour, they discussed options, strategies, and potential outcomes. Jennifer explained each possibility with patience, answering Sarah's questions and addressing her concerns. "The good news," Jennifer said, "is that despite the prenup, you have rights. The baby changes things significantly. We can petition for temporary support while the divorce is pending, and given Noah's resources, we have a strong case for substantial alimony and child support." Sarah twisted her wedding ring. She still hadn't taken it off. "I don't want to take him for everything. I just want enough to start over." "That's admirable. But remember, this isn't about punishing Noah. It's about securing your future and your child's future." Jennifer leaned forward. "You've put your career on hold for his. You've supported him, helped build his success. You deserve a fair settlement." They discussed next steps, filing the petition, serving Noah with papers, preparing for his likely reaction. With each detail, the reality of what she was doing became clearer. "It's going to be difficult," Jennifer warned. "Noah may not take this well. Men like him often don't handle losing control gracefully." Sarah thought about the night in the car, about all the subtle ways Noah had tried to control her over the years. "I know, but I can't go back." Jennifer smiled approvingly. "Then we'll move forward. I'll have my team start preparing the paperwork today." Standing to leave, Sarah felt lighter despite the weight of what lay ahead. The familiar knot of anxiety in her stomach was still there, but now it was tempered with something else. Determination. She shook Jennifer's hand, gathered her documents, and walked towards the office door. Her steps were steady, even as her heart raced with a mixture of fear and resolve. The doorbell echoed through Katie's house, startling Sarah from her morning tea. Through the window, she saw Noah's Mercedes parked in the driveway, its sleek black surface gleaming in the morning sun. Her heart jumped into her throat. "I can tell him to leave," Katie offered from the kitchen doorway, dish towel in hand. Sarah shook her head. "No, I need to do this." She pressed her palm against her slightly swollen belly, drawing strength from the life growing within. When she opened the door, Noah stood there in his expensive suit, looking disheveled, so unlike his usual polished self. His eyes were rimmed red, his tie loose around his neck. "Sarah," he breathed, "please, can we talk?" She crossed her arms, maintaining distance. "I think we're past that, Noah." "Baby, I know I messed up." He ran his fingers through his usually perfect hair. "The car, Bianca. I was stressed about work, about the baby. I wasn't thinking straight." Sarah felt the familiar pull, the urge to comfort him, to smooth things over like she always did. But the memory of sitting alone in that locked car strengthened her resolve. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. But only for a minute. Katie made herself scarce as Noah followed Sarah to the living room. He looked out of place among the cozy, lived-in furniture, too sharp, too corporate for the warmth of the space. "I've been going crazy without you," he said, reaching for her hand. Sarah pulled back. "The house is empty. I miss you. I'll do anything, counseling, whatever you want. I'll be more present, more involved with the baby." "Like you were present when I told you I was pregnant?" Sarah's voice remained calm, though her hands shook slightly. "Or when I needed you during the morning sickness?" Noah's face fell. "I know I wasn't there like I should have been, but I can change. I will change." "You locked me in a car, Noah." The words hung heavy between them. "Your pregnant wife. Then you walked away with another woman." "I wasn't thinking clearly. Bianca means nothing." "This isn't about Bianca," Sarah interrupted. "It's about us, about who we've become." She gestured to the space between them. "Look at us. When was the last time we really talked? Really connected?" Noah stepped closer, desperation in his eyes. "We can fix this. I'll cut back at work. We can travel like we used to, whatever you want." "That's just it," Sarah said softly. "You think throwing money and grand gestures at problems will make them disappear, but I don't want trips or presents. I wanted a partner, someone who saw me as an equal, not an accessory to their success." "You are my equal," he protested. "Am I? Is that why everything's in your name? Why you never supported my dreams of starting my own business?" She touched her belly again. "Why you couldn't even pretend to be happy about our baby?" Tears welled in Noah's eyes, the first time she'd seen him cry in years. "Please, Sarah, I love you. We can start over." Sarah felt her own eyes burning, but her voice remained steady. "I deserve more than empty promises, Noah. I deserve someone who doesn't need to start over because they got it right the first time." "Don't do this," he whispered. "I already have." She stood, walking to the door. "My lawyer will be in touch." Noah followed, his shoulders slumped in defeat. At the doorway, he turned one last time. "I never meant to hurt you." "I know," Sarah said gently. "That almost makes it worse." She closed the door behind him, listening to his footsteps fade down the path. Through the window, she watched him sit in his car for several long moments before finally driving away. The mixture of sadness and relief washing over her felt like coming up for air after being underwater for too long. Bianca lounged by her penthouse pool, designer sunglasses perched on her nose as she scrolled through luxury vacation rentals on her phone. The late afternoon sun cast a golden glow across her bronzed skin, and she smiled, imagining herself and Noah on a private beach in the Maldives. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Usually she'd let it go to voicemail, but something made her answer. "Is this Ms. Bianca Morrison?" The voice was professional, clipped. "Speaking." She sat up, adjusting her silk cover-up. "This is James Parker from Riverside Financial. I'm Noah Crawford's personal financial advisor." He paused. "I believe we need to have a conversation about Noah's current situation." Bianca's perfectly manicured fingers tightened around her phone. "What kind of situation?" "I've been trying to reach Noah for weeks. He's been avoiding my calls, and given your relationship with him, I thought you should know the truth." The way he said relationship made her skin crawl. She stood, walking into her air-conditioned living room. "What truth?" "Noah's company is hemorrhaging money. He's been taking out high-interest loans to maintain appearances, but the debt is staggering. We're talking millions." Bianca's stomach dropped. "That's impossible. His tech company is failing. The new product launch was a disaster. Investors are pulling out." James sighed. The mansion, the cars, the luxurious lifestyle. It's all smoke and mirrors at this point. She sank onto her white leather couch, mind racing. Just yesterday, Noah had promised to take her shopping for a new summer wardrobe, had talked about buying a yacht. "There's more," James continued. "The SEC is investigating some questionable transactions. If they find what I think they might—" He left the sentence hanging. Bianca's throat felt dry. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Noah needs help, but he won't listen to reason. And because—" Another pause. "Because he's been using your joint investment account to cover his personal debts." The room spun. She'd given Noah access to her investment portfolio 2 months ago, trusting him to grow her wealth. "How much?" "Nearly all of it." Bianca's free hand curled into a fist. She thought about the designer bags in her closet, the expensive dinners, the promises of a future filled with luxury and ease. All lies. Her doorbell rang, and she knew without checking that it was Noah. He'd promised to take her to dinner at that new exclusive restaurant downtown. "I have to go," she told James. "Thank you for telling me." She opened her door to find Noah standing there in his tailored suit, holding a bouquet of roses. His smile faltered when he saw her expression. "Everything okay, baby?" Bianca stepped back, letting him in. The roses that would have thrilled her an hour ago now seemed like another prop in his elaborate deception. "James Parker called me." Noah's face went blank for a moment before he recovered. "Ah, look, whatever he said. Is it true?" She cut him off. "About the company? The debt? My investment account?" He set the roses down, running a hand through his hair, a nervous tell she'd never noticed before. "It's temporary. The market's volatile right now, but I have plans." "Stop lying." Her voice was ice. "For once in your life, tell the truth." Noah's confident facade cracked. "I can fix this. I just need time. A few more investors." "Like me?" Bianca laughed bitterly. "Is that what I was? Another investor to manipulate? No, I love you. Everything between us is real." She walked to her bedroom, pulling out a small suitcase. "The only thing real is that you're a fraud, Noah. A common con man in an expensive suit." "Bianca, please." He followed her, watching as she threw in some essentials. "Where are you going?" "Away from you." She zipped the suitcase. I'll have my lawyer contact you about my investment account. We can work this out. He reached for her arm, but she jerked away. No, we can't. She grabbed her purse and suitcase. I wanted a successful man, Noah, not a desperate one playing pretend. Without another glance, she walked out of her penthouse, leaving Noah standing among the shattered pieces of his carefully constructed illusion. The elevator doors closed on his protests, and Bianca pulled out her phone to book a hotel, already erasing Noah from her future plans. Sarah stood in front of her bathroom mirror, really looking at herself for the first time in months. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and stress had etched fine lines around her mouth. Her hand drifted to her growing baby bump, and something inside her shifted. This wasn't just about her anymore. We deserve better, she whispered to her unborn child. Both of us do. She pulled out her phone and opened her calendar app, which had been mostly filled with Noah's appointments and social events. With quick, decisive taps, she deleted them all. The empty spaces felt like a fresh start. That morning, she walked into the local community center, clutching a printed schedule of their prenatal yoga classes. The instructor, Maya, welcomed her with a warm smile. First time? Maya asked, helping Sarah set up her mat. Yes. Sarah's voice wavered slightly. I've been meaning to try this for weeks. During the class, Sarah felt her body relax for the first time in months. The gentle movements and deep breathing centered her, clearing her mind. When the session ended, she signed up for the full course. Back home, Sarah opened her laptop and pulled up the business courses she'd been researching. Her fingers hovered over the Enroll button for the Introduction to Sustainable Business course. The old Sarah would have hesitated, worried about what Noah would think. The new Sarah clicked without hesitation. The course materials were overwhelming at first. Terms like market analysis and profit margins swam before her eyes, but she refused to give up. She created a study schedule, carving out time between yoga classes and doctor's appointments. One afternoon, while reviewing her notes on sustainable business practices, Sarah's old passion project resurfaced. Years ago, she'd dreamed of creating an eco-friendly subscription box service for new parents, filled with sustainable baby products and educational materials about environmental consciousness. She pulled out a fresh notebook and began sketching ideas. The concept had evolved since she first thought of it. Now she saw the potential for an entire community, not just a product line. Her pregnancy gave her unique insight into what environmentally conscious parents might need. Sarah started visiting local organic baby stores, talking to parents about their concerns and wishes. She took careful notes, building a database of potential customers and their needs. The shop owners, impressed by her genuine interest and questions, shared valuable insights about the industry. Between classes, she created mood boards and product mock-ups. Her dining room table disappeared under samples of organic cotton onesies, bamboo diapers, and natural skincare products. She researched suppliers, pricing structures, and packaging options. The prenatal yoga community became her first focus group. After class, she'd share her ideas, and the other mothers-to-be offered suggestions and encouragement. Maya even offered to feature the subscription boxes in her studio once they launched. One evening, while working on her business plan, Katie called. "How are you doing?" her friend asked, concern evident in her voice. "Actually, really good," Sarah replied, surprising herself with how true it felt. "I'm taking classes, doing yoga, and—" She hesitated before sharing her business idea, still protective of this new dream. "And?" Katie prompted. Sarah took a deep breath and told her everything. The subscription boxes, the community aspect, her vision for helping parents make sustainable choices. "Sarah, that's brilliant," Katie exclaimed. You know, I have a friend who works in venture capital. She focuses on women-owned businesses and sustainable initiatives. Would you like me to introduce you? Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Are you serious? Absolutely. She's always looking for promising startups, especially ones with a strong environmental focus. 2 days later, Sarah's phone rang with an unknown number. She answered, trying to keep her voice steady. Hello, is this Sarah Crawford? This is Jennifer Martinez from Green Future Ventures. Your friend Katie mentioned your business concept, and I'd love to hear more about it. Sarah's hand trembled as she grabbed her business plan. Yes, thank you for calling. I'd be happy to tell you about it. As she began describing her vision, Sarah felt a flutter in her stomach. Whether from the baby or excitement, she wasn't sure. But for the first time in months, she felt truly alive, pursuing something that was entirely her own. Sarah sat cross-legged on her living room floor, surrounded by samples of organic cotton fabrics, sustainable packaging materials, and natural baby products. Her laptop displayed a spreadsheet of potential suppliers, each carefully vetted for their environmental practices and ethical standards. The soft glow of her desk lamp cast shadows on the mood boards propped against the wall, showcasing her vision for little green beginnings. She reached for her herbal tea, a replacement for her usual coffee since the pregnancy, and reviewed her notes from the morning's meeting with a graphic designer. The logo drafts spread before her showed various interpretations of her brand, soft, earthy colors mixed with modern, clean lines. One particular design caught her eye, a sprouting seedling cradled in gentle hands. It perfectly captured her mission of nurturing both babies and the environment. Her phone buzzed with a message from Maya, her yoga instructor. The moms from class love your prototype boxes. 3 more signed up for the waiting list. Sarah smiled, remembering the nervous excitement she'd felt presenting her sample boxes to her prenatal yoga class. The organic cotton swaddles, bamboo wipes, and natural diaper cream had been an instant hit. More importantly, the educational cards about reducing environmental impact had sparked meaningful discussions among the soon-to-be parents. The challenges were constant, though. Just that morning, she'd discovered that her initial packaging supplier couldn't meet her sustainability requirements. It meant starting the search over, pushing back her launch timeline. But instead of feeling defeated, Sarah felt energized by the problem-solving process. Each obstacle was a chance to make her business stronger. Her networking efforts were paying off. The local mothers group she'd joined had connected her with an experienced business mentor, Rebecca, who had built her own successful organic skincare line. Their weekly coffee meetings had become a source of practical advice and emotional support. Your strength isn't just in your products, Rebecca had told her during their last meeting. It's in your story and your authenticity. Use that. Taking Rebecca's advice, Sarah had started a blog documenting her journey as an expectant mother, building a sustainable business. Her posts about choosing eco-friendly baby products and navigating pregnancy while launching a startup resonated with readers. The growing comment section filled with supportive messages and pre-launch sign-ups. Her phone lit up again, this time with an email from Jennifer at Green Future Ventures. The subject line read, "Investment meeting, next steps." Sarah's heart raced as she opened it. The preliminary meetings had gone well, but this email could change everything. After reviewing your business plan and market research, the email began, we'd like to schedule a formal pitch meeting with our full investment committee. Sarah pressed her hand to her growing belly, feeling the baby move. "We're doing it, little one," she whispered. "We're building something special." Looking around her makeshift office, she realized how far she'd come from that night locked in the car. The woman who had felt trapped and powerless was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who made her own decisions and faced challenges head-on. Her client list had grown from a handful of interested yoga moms to over 100 pre-launch subscribers. Local boutiques had reached out about carrying her products, and a popular parenting blog wanted to feature her story. Even her Instagram following had exploded after she started sharing behind-the-scenes glimpses of her sustainable business journey. Late that night, Sarah organized her files for the upcoming investor meeting. Her spreadsheets showed careful planning and promising projections. The prototype boxes, lined up on her shelves, represented countless hours of research and refinement. Her brand guidelines reflected a clear, compelling vision. She pulled up her growing contact list: suppliers, mentors, potential investors, and eager customers. Each name represented a connection she'd built on her own merit, not as Noah's wife, but as Sarah, the founder of Little Green Beginnings. Pride swelled in her chest as she reviewed what she'd accomplished in just a few months. Noah stared at the past due notices scattered across his mahogany desk. The red stamps seemed to mock him, a stark contrast to the elegant office he could barely afford anymore. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone, checking his banking app for the 100th time that day. The numbers hadn't changed. They were still deep in the red. Outside his window, the city skyline that once represented his success now felt like it was closing in on him. The lease on this premium office space was just another burden he couldn't shoulder. His assistant had already quit, tired of making excuses to creditors who called incessantly. "Mr. Reynolds?" A hesitant voice came from his doorway. It was Jake, his junior partner. "The investors from Singapore, they're pulling out. They said something about concerns over our financial stability." Noah loosened his tie, feeling the pressure mount. That deal was supposed to be his lifeline, his way back to stability. He'd spent weeks courting those investors, promising returns he knew he couldn't guarantee. "And sir?" Jake lingered uncomfortably. "Some of the staff are asking about last month's paychecks." "Tell them it's being processed," Noah snapped, the lie bitter on his tongue. Jake nodded and retreated, but Noah caught the look of doubt in his eyes, the same look he'd seen in Bianca's eyes before she left. His phone buzzed, another call from his bank. He let it go to voicemail, adding to the growing collection of unanswered calls. The designer watch on his wrist, once a symbol of his success, now felt like a shackle. He'd tried to sell it last week, only to discover it was a knockoff. He couldn't even remember when he'd started buying fakes to maintain appearances. At lunch, Noah walked to his usual high-end restaurant, more out of habit than hunger. The maître d', who used to greet him by name, now watched him warily. His credit card had been declined here last week, causing a scene he'd rather forget. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds," the maître d' said quietly. "We need to see payment up front for your table today." Noah's face burned as he turned and left. Instead, he found himself at a cheap diner, picking at a hamburger while checking his phone. His social media feeds were filled with people he used to call friends, all suddenly too busy to return his calls. Word of his financial troubles had spread through their circles like wildfire. A notification popped up, a business news article featuring his company. The headline made his stomach turn. Tech mogul's empire shows signs of crumbling. The article detailed his recent failed ventures, missed payments, and mounting debts. His carefully crafted image was unraveling thread by thread. Back at his office, Noah found an eviction notice taped to his door. His secretary's desk was cleared out. She must have quit without even saying goodbye. Inside, more papers awaited. Lawsuits from angry investors, demands from creditors, and a letter from his attorney suggesting bankruptcy might be his best option. Through mutual friends, he heard whispers about Sarah. Her new business was taking off, attracting positive attention and serious investors. She was featured in a local business magazine, praised for her innovative approach to sustainable baby products. The photo showed her smiling, one hand resting on her pregnant belly, looking more confident than he'd ever seen her. When Sarah heard about Noah's troubles, she was having lunch with her business mentor, Rebecca. The news came through a text from a mutual friend, detailing Noah's latest financial disaster. Sarah set her phone down without commenting, turning her attention back to the prototype designs spread across the table. She felt neither joy nor sorrow at Noah's downfall, just a calm detachment. Her mind was focused on her upcoming investor meeting and the new supplier she'd found for her organic cotton products. "Everything okay?" Rebecca asked, noticing her pause. "Yes," Sarah replied, genuinely meaning it. "Just some old news that doesn't matter anymore." She picked up her pen and returned to her work, leaving thoughts of Noah and his troubles behind. Sarah stood backstage at the Women's Leadership Conference, smoothing down her navy blazer. Her hand instinctively rested on her growing baby bump as she reviewed her note cards one last time. The conference hall hummed with the voices of hundreds of successful businesswomen who had gathered to share their stories and inspire others. "You're on in 5 minutes, Mrs. Harrison," a young event coordinator said, adjusting her headset. Sarah smiled at the use of her maiden name. She'd recently changed it back. Through the curtain, she could see the packed auditorium. 6 months ago, she would have been terrified to speak in front of such a crowd. Now she felt ready. Rebecca, her mentor, appeared beside her. "Remember what we practiced. Just tell your story honestly. That's what people want to hear." The stage lights felt warm as Sarah took her place at the podium. She looked out at the sea of faces, all waiting expectantly. Taking a deep breath, she began. "6 months ago, I was locked in a car by my husband," she started. The audience fell silent. "I was pregnant, scared, and felt completely powerless. That moment could have broken me. Instead, it became the catalyst for the biggest transformation of my life." As she spoke, Sarah's voice grew stronger. She shared how she'd rediscovered her passion for sustainable living, how she'd turned her small idea into a growing business. She talked about the challenges of starting over, of building something from nothing while preparing for single motherhood. "The hardest part wasn't leaving my marriage," she continued. "It was remembering who I was before I lost myself in it. We often talk about financial independence, but emotional independence, that's the foundation everything else is built on." From the stage, Sarah could see women nodding, some wiping tears from their eyes. In the front row, Rebecca beamed proudly. "My company, EcoNurture, isn't just about sustainable baby products. It's about creating a better future for our children and our planet. But more than that, it's proof that our lowest moments don't define us. They refine us." Sarah shared practical advice about securing funding, building a support network, and staying true to your vision even when others doubt you. She talked about the importance of mentorship and how other women's support had been crucial to her success. "Today, I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. My company is growing faster than I ever imagined. We're expanding into 3 new markets next quarter. But more importantly, I wake up every morning excited about the future I'm building for myself and my child." The applause was thunderous when she finished. Women rose to their feet, creating a wave of standing ovations that moved through the audience. Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes, overwhelmed by the response. As she stepped down from the stage, Rebecca was the first to hug her. "You did it, Sarah. You really did it." Other women began approaching, forming a circle around her. A venture capitalist handed Sarah her card, expressing interest in EcoNurture's next funding round. An established CEO offered to mentor her through her company's expansion. "Your story resonated with me so much," one woman said, squeezing Sarah's hand. "I'm going through something similar right now. You've given me hope." Another woman, who introduced herself as the owner of a major retail chain, wanted to discuss carrying EcoNurture products in her stores. The opportunities seemed endless, but what touched Sarah most were the personal connections. "We have a monthly mastermind group," one successful entrepreneur told her. "We'd love to have you join us. Having a strong support system is everything in this journey." Sarah found herself surrounded by warmth, encouragement, and practical support. These women weren't just offering business opportunities, they were offering community, understanding, and solidarity. In their presence, she felt her confidence grow even stronger. The atmosphere buzzed with energy as business cards were exchanged and connections were made. Sarah realized she'd found something she never had in her marriage to Noah: a genuine sense of belonging among people who understood and supported her vision. Sarah's heels clicked against the polished marble floor of the law office building. Her hand instinctively went to her growing baby bump as she stepped into the elevator. The familiar motion brought comfort as she pressed the button for the 12th floor. Attorney Michelle Chen's office was a familiar sight now, after months of negotiations and paperwork. The large windows offered a panoramic view of the city, but Sarah barely noticed it anymore. Her focus was on the manila folder sitting on the heavy oak desk. "Good morning, Sarah." Michelle stood, extending her hand. "How are you feeling today?" "Nervous," Sarah admitted, settling into the leather chair. "But ready." Michelle nodded, understanding. "Noah's attorney confirmed he signed his portion yesterday. All we need is your signature, and it's done." She paused, studying Sarah's face. "Are you sure you don't want to review the terms one more time?" Sarah shook her head. "I've memorized every word." The settlement was fair. More than fair, actually. Noah had agreed to her terms quickly, perhaps hoping to avoid public scrutiny of his financial troubles. She would keep their apartment and receive substantial child support, though she doubted Noah's ability to maintain the payments given his current situation. Michelle spread the papers across the desk, sticky arrows marking each signature line. "Take your time," she said, sliding an elegant fountain pen toward Sarah. Sarah's hand trembled slightly as she picked up the pen, the weight of the moment pressed down on her shoulders. 6 years of marriage would end with a few strokes of ink. Memories flooded her mind. Their first date at the coffee shop near campus, Noah's proposal in Paris, their wedding day when everything seemed perfect. Then came the more recent memories, the growing distance, the cold silences, that terrible night in the car. "Sarah?" Michelle's voice was gentle. "We can take a break if you need one." "No." Sarah straightened in her chair. "I'm ready." She signed her name on the first line, her handwriting steady and clear. With each subsequent signature, she felt lighter, as if she was untying knots that had bound her for too long. Katie had offered to come with her today, but Sarah had declined. This was something she needed to do alone. Her friend had already done so much, offering her spare room when Sarah first left Noah, helping her pack, listening through countless tearful nights. Sarah paused at the last signature line, her pen hovering above the paper. This was it, the final stroke that would end her marriage. She thought of her unborn child, of the future she was building. Her business was growing, she had a strong support network, and for the first time in years, she felt truly herself. "This is the last one," Michelle confirmed softly. Sarah took a deep breath and signed her name. The ink flowed smoothly across the paper, marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Michelle gathered the documents, checking each page methodically. "I'll file these with the court today. You'll receive the final decree in about 2 weeks." She stood, extending her hand again. "Congratulations, Sarah. You've handled this with remarkable grace." Sarah rose, suddenly aware of how much lighter she felt. The weight she'd been carrying for months, years, really, seemed to dissolve. Her hand no longer trembled as she shook Michelle's. "Thank you for everything," Sarah said, meaning it. Michelle had been more than just her attorney through this process. She'd been a steady guide through one of the most challenging periods of Sarah's life. As she walked toward the office door, Sarah caught her reflection in the window. She looked different somehow. Stronger. More confident. The woman staring back at her wasn't the same one who had first walked into this office months ago, scared and uncertain. Her hand rested on the door handle, and she paused for a moment, taking in the significance of what had just happened. Then, with a small smile, she stepped out into the hallway, ready to embrace her new beginning. Sarah's fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup as she sat in the quiet corner of the cafe. The morning rush had died down, leaving only a few patrons scattered among the tables. The familiar scent of coffee and freshly baked pastries filled the air, but she barely noticed it. Her mind was on the text message that had brought her here. Noah had asked to meet. "One last time," he'd said. She checked her watch. 9:57 a.m. Noah was always punctual, one of his few remaining reliable traits. As if on cue, the bell above the door chimed, and he walked in. The sight of him startled her. Gone was the polished executive she'd known for years. His designer suit hung loose on his frame, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. His usual confident stride had been replaced by something more hesitant. "Sarah," he said softly, pulling out the chair across from her. "Thank you for meeting me." She nodded, watching as he ordered a black coffee from the passing waitress. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the sugar packets, a nervous tell she remembered from their early dating days. "I've been thinking," he started, his voice hoarse, "about everything, about us." He paused as the waitress set down his coffee. "I know I've made mistakes, terrible ones, but I can fix this." Sarah remained silent, her face neutral. She'd learned that silence often revealed more than words. "The business, I have new investors interested, real ones this time." His words tumbled out faster now. "And I've been seeing someone, a therapist. She's helping me understand why I—" He trailed off, unable to finish the thought. "Why you locked your pregnant wife in a car and walked away with another woman," Sarah supplied, her voice calm but firm. Noah flinched. "I was scared. The pregnancy, the business problems, everything was spinning out of control. But I'm different now. I can be the man you always wanted me to be." Sarah took a slow sip of her coffee, letting his words settle in the air between them. Through the cafe window, she could see people hurrying past, living their lives, moving forward, just as she had been doing. "I miss you," Noah continued, reaching across the table for her hand. She pulled back slightly, just enough to avoid his touch. "The house feels empty without you. Remember how we used to talk about our future? The family we'd have? We can still have that." For a moment, Sarah felt a flutter of their old connection, the dreams they'd shared, the plans they'd made. But it passed quickly, replaced by the memory of countless lonely nights, of feeling invisible in her own marriage, of that terrible evening in the car. "You know what I remember, Noah?" She set down her cup carefully. "I remember calling you 3 times the day I had my first ultrasound. You never called back. I remember crying myself to sleep while you worked late, with Bianca, as it turned out. I remember making myself smaller and smaller to fit into the space you allowed me." Noah's face crumpled. "I can change. I will change. Just give me one more chance." Sarah looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the desperate man before her, but she also saw the shadows of the charming college boyfriend, the ambitious young executive, the husband who had once made her feel like the center of his world. All those versions of Noah swirled together, but none of them could touch her heart anymore. "I'm building something, Noah. Something real. My business is growing. I'm making my own choices, and for the first time in years, I feel whole." She rested her hand on her slightly rounded belly. "I can't save you. I won't try anymore." "Sarah, please." The woman who would have stayed, who would have tried to fix everything. She's gone. Sarah stood, gathering her purse. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Noah. But it won't be with me." Noah remained seated, his coffee untouched, as Sarah walked toward the door. The morning sun streamed through the windows, warming her face as she stepped outside. Sarah adjusted her blazer as she walked through her company's office space. The eco-friendly decor reflected everything she'd worked so hard to build: bamboo desks, recycled materials, and large windows that allowed natural light to flood the open space, reducing their energy consumption. "Good morning, Mrs. Harrison," called out Jenny, her assistant, hurrying toward her with a tablet in hand. "The sustainable packaging samples arrived from the manufacturer, and the marketing team wants your feedback on the new campaign." Sarah smiled, taking in the bustling energy around her. 2 years had passed since that night in the car, and her life had transformed completely. Her company, EcoLife Solutions, had grown from a small startup to a recognized leader in sustainable family products. "The investor meeting went well?" Jenny asked, following Sarah into her office. "Better than expected," Sarah replied, settling behind her desk. She glanced at the ultrasound photo frame beside her computer. Her daughter Emma, now a happy 1-year-old, had been her motivation through every challenge. "They're doubling their investment after seeing our quarterly results." Her phone buzzed with notifications. Another major retailer wanted to carry their product line, and 3 more speaking engagement requests had come in overnight. Sarah remembered the days when she'd doubt herself, wondering if she could really build something meaningful. Now, her company was helping thousands of families transition to sustainable living. "Oh, and this came for you." Jenny handed her the latest issue of Business Innovation magazine. Sarah's breath caught as she saw her company featured in a spread about revolutionary startups. The article praised her vision of making eco-friendly living accessible to average families. "Mrs. Harrison?" Jenny interrupted her thoughts. "The team from Goldman's is here for the partnership meeting." Sarah stood, smoothing her dress. The nervous energy she'd felt in early meetings had been replaced by quiet confidence. She'd learned to trust her instincts, to stand firm in negotiations, to lead with both compassion and authority. Walking into the conference room, Sarah saw 6 executives waiting for her. Once their presence might have intimidated her. Now she knew her worth. "Good morning," she began, her voice clear and strong. "Let's talk about how we can revolutionize sustainable family living." The meeting flowed smoothly, with the executives leaning in as she presented her vision for expansion. Their eyes lit up at the projected growth numbers, but Sarah knew it wasn't just about profits. It was about creating real change. After the meeting, Sarah took a moment on the office balcony, looking out over the city. She thought about how far she'd come from being the woman who put everyone else's needs before her own. Now, she was making decisions that affected hundreds of employees and thousands of customers. Her phone rang, an unknown number. "Sarah Harrison speaking," she answered professionally. "Mrs. Harrison, this is Claire Thompson from Forbes magazine," a warm voice replied. "We've been following your company's remarkable growth, and we'd love to feature you in our Women Changing Business issue next month." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Forbes, the magazine she'd read religiously when dreaming of starting her own business. "Your story is exactly what we're looking for," Claire continued. "A woman who transformed personal adversity into professional triumph. Would you be interested in being our cover story?" A smile spread across Sarah's face as she thought about the journey, from being locked in that car to leading a company that was changing lives. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. "I'd be honored," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the excitement bubbling inside her. She could already picture Emma seeing her mother on the cover of Forbes, proving that any dream was possible with determination and courage. The call ended, and Sarah looked out at the city again, this time with tears of joy in her eyes. She'd done it, not just built a successful business, but created something meaningful, something that would make her daughter proud. Jenny appeared at the door. "Everything okay?" "Better than okay," Sarah replied, her smile radiant. "Everything is exactly where it should be." Sarah sat in the makeup chair as the stylist made final touches to her hair. The bright lights of the Good Morning America studio reflected off the mirrors surrounding her. Her heart fluttered, not from nervousness, but from a quiet excitement. This wasn't just another business interview. This was a chance to inspire others who might be struggling like she once had. "5 minutes, Mrs. Harrison," a production assistant called out, clipboard in hand. Sarah smoothed her emerald green dress, chosen carefully to represent growth and new beginnings. She thought about how far she'd come from that night, locked in the car. The memory no longer brought pain, only gratitude for the strength it had awakened in her. "Welcome back," Robin Roberts' warm voice filled the studio. "Our next guest is being called the Queen of Green by Business Weekly. Sarah Harrison's company, Eco-Life Solutions, has revolutionized how families approach sustainable living. But it's her personal journey from heartbreak to success that's capturing hearts nationwide." The cameras turned to Sarah as she walked onto the set, settling into the plush interview chair with practiced ease. "Sarah, thank you for being here," Robin smiled warmly. "Thank you for having me, Robin. It's an honor. Your story is remarkable. 2 years ago, you were in what seemed like a perfect marriage to a successful tech millionaire. Now, you're running a multi-million-dollar company. What changed?" Sarah took a deep breath, remembering the commitment she'd made to herself about being honest about her journey. "Sometimes, what looks perfect on the outside is anything but. I had lost myself in that marriage, always putting everyone else's needs before my own. It took a devastating moment, being locked in a car by my then-husband while pregnant, to wake me up to the reality of my situation." Robin's expression showed genuine concern. "That must have been terrifying." "It was," Sarah nodded. "But it was also the moment everything changed. Sitting there alone, I realized I had a choice. I could remain a victim, or I could take control of my life. I chose the latter, not just for myself, but for my unborn daughter." "And that's when Eco-Life Solutions was born?" Sarah's eyes lit up as she talked about her company. "I'd always been passionate about sustainable living, but I'd pushed those dreams aside. Starting over gave me the courage to pursue them. I wanted to create products that would make it easier for regular families to live sustainably without breaking the bank." "The response has been incredible," Robin noted, holding up one of Sarah's signature products. "Your baby care line alone has helped reduce plastic waste by thousands of tons." "That's what drives us," Sarah smiled. "Every product we create has to serve both families and the planet. We're not just selling items, we're creating a movement toward conscious living." "But it wasn't always smooth sailing?" Robin prompted. "You faced significant challenges in the beginning." "Absolutely. Being a pregnant, soon-to-be divorced woman pitching to investors wasn't easy. I heard no more times than I can count. But each rejection just made me more determined. I knew I had something valuable to offer, and I refused to let anyone's doubt dim my vision." What would you say to women watching who might be in similar situations, feeling trapped, afraid to start over? Sarah leaned forward, speaking directly to the camera. "You are stronger than you know. Your worth isn't determined by your relationship status or what others think of you. If you have a dream, pursue it. If you're in a situation that diminishes you, find the courage to leave. There's no shame in starting over." The interview continued, touching on Sarah's upcoming projects and expansion plans. As they wrapped up, Robin held up Sarah's latest achievement, the Forbes magazine with Sarah's photo on the cover. "Congratulations on this, by the way," Robin smiled. The headline reads, "The Green Revolution: How Sarah Harrison Turned Personal Crisis into Professional Triumph." "That must feel amazing." "It does," Sarah admitted. "But what feels even better is knowing that my daughter will grow up seeing that anything is possible with determination and self-belief." As the segment ended, the studio erupted in applause. Crew members approached with tears in their eyes, sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. Sarah's phone buzzed continuously with messages from viewers, many from women sharing how her story had given them hope. Back in the green room, Sarah read through the outpouring of support on social media. Women from across the country were tagging her, calling her an inspiration, sharing their own stories of starting over. Her journey had become more than just her own success story. It had become a beacon of hope for others. Noah slumped in his leather armchair, the TV's blue light casting shadows across his unshaven face. His once pristine penthouse apartment now felt hollow, with empty takeout containers littering the coffee table. He reached for the remote to change the channel, but froze when Sarah's face appeared on the screen. She looked radiant. The camera captured her quiet confidence as she settled into the interview chair, her pregnancy now showing in the elegant curve of her belly. Her success was evident in every detail, from her perfectly tailored dress to the assured way she carried herself. This wasn't the same woman he'd left locked in that car. "Your story is remarkable," the host was saying. 2 years ago, you were in what seemed like a perfect marriage to a successful tech millionaire." Noah flinched at the reference. His fingers tightened around his whiskey glass as memories flooded back. The charity events, the business dinners, the facade of their perfect life. He'd been so caught up in maintaining appearances that he'd missed what was real. His phone buzzed with another message from his financial advisor. He ignored it, knowing it would be more bad news. The tech company he'd built was hemorrhaging money, investors were pulling out, and his reputation was in tatters. The irony wasn't lost on him. While Sarah's star rose, his was plummeting. "Being locked in a car by my then-husband while pregnant." Sarah's voice drew his attention back to the screen. The host's expression mirrored the shock of the audience, but Sarah spoke with a strength that made Noah's stomach churn. He remembered that night, his anger, his impulsiveness, Bianca waiting in her car. He'd thought he was teaching Sarah a lesson. Instead, he'd given her the push she needed to leave. Bianca. Another bitter memory. She'd left him the moment his financial troubles came to light, not even bothering with a goodbye. Just a text message and a blocked number. And, now she was dating a real estate mogul in Miami. Their relationship splashed across social media. "Every product we create has to serve both families and the planet," Sarah was explaining, her passion evident as she discussed her company. Noah knew those numbers. He'd obsessively tracked EcoLife Solutions' growth. Their latest valuation was triple what his company was worth now. He threw back the rest of his whiskey, the alcohol burning his throat. On screen, Sarah was describing her journey, how she'd turned rejection into determination. Noah remembered dismissing her ideas during their marriage, treating her dreams as cute hobbies. Now those hobbies had built an empire. The host held up the Forbes magazine with Sarah's cover photo. Noah had seen it at the newsstand earlier that day, her success another reminder of his failures. He'd been featured in Forbes once, too, praised as a tech innovator. Now business journals were writing articles about his company's decline, speculating about bankruptcy. His phone buzzed again. This time it was his lawyer, probably about the upcoming investor lawsuit. Noah ignored it, his eyes fixed on Sarah's image. She was talking about their daughter now, the child he'd never met, the family he'd thrown away for a relationship that proved as shallow as his bank account. "If you have a dream, pursue it," Sarah was saying to the camera. "If you're in a situation that diminishes you, find the courage to leave. There's no shame in starting over." Noah switched off the TV, the silence of his apartment pressing in around him. His gaze fell on the stack of papers on his desk. Bankruptcy filings, legal notices, final warnings from creditors. The empire he'd built was crumbling, and he had no one to blame but himself. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Sarah was building a future, surrounded by success and support. Meanwhile, his world had shrunk to this apartment, his phone full of calls from lawyers and creditors rather than friends or family. The bitter truth was inescapable. He'd had everything and lost it all through his own choices. Not just the money or the status, but the things that really mattered. Love, family, respect. Sarah had risen from the ashes of their marriage, stronger and more successful than ever. And he was left alone with nothing but regrets and mounting debts, watching his ex-wife's triumph from the sidelines of a life he'd ruined. Sarah stood in the modern conference room of Eco-Life Solutions, surrounded by the warm glow of success and the excited chatter of her team. Champagne glasses clinked as they celebrated hitting their first 100 million in revenue, a milestone that seemed impossible just 2 years ago. The wall-to-wall windows offered a stunning view of the city skyline, but Sarah's attention was on the faces around her. These weren't just employees. They were the people who'd believed in her vision when it was nothing more than an idea born from pain. To Sarah, Katie raised her glass, her eyes glistening with pride. As both her best friend and chief operating officer, Katie had been there from the beginning. From that night, she'd picked up a devastated Sarah from the locked car. "Who showed us that the best revenge is massive success?" Sarah smiled, adjusting her emerald blazer, a power color she'd chosen specifically for today. "To all of us," she corrected, lifting her own glass. "Success isn't sweet unless it's shared." The room erupted in applause, and Sarah took a moment to absorb it all. Their office space occupied 3 floors now, a far cry from the tiny co-working desk she'd started with. Their eco-friendly family products lined the shelves along one wall. Everything from sustainable baby items to home organization solutions. Each product had a story, each success hard-earned. Jennifer, her head of product development, approached with the latest prototype, a biodegradable diaper that had just passed all safety tests. "The focus group results came in," she beamed, 98% approval rate. Sarah ran her fingers over the soft, sustainable material. This was the product she'd dreamed of when she was pregnant, scared, and alone. Now it would help thousands of mothers make better choices for their babies and the planet. "Marketing wants to know if you're ready to film the new campaign next week?" Marcus, her PR director, chimed in. "The Power of Choice theme is resonating really well with our audience." Sarah nodded, remembering her own journey of choices. The choice to leave, to start over, to believe in herself. Let's make sure we emphasize the community aspect. It's not just about products, it's about supporting each other. The celebration continued around her as Sarah moved through the crowd, stopping to chat with different team members. She learned about their families, their dreams, their challenges. This was what leadership meant to her, creating a space where people could grow and thrive. Her phone buzzed with a message from her daughter's nanny, a photo of the toddler playing with one of Eco-Life's wooden toy sets. Sarah's heart swelled. Everything she did was for that little girl, showing her that women could be strong, independent, and successful. As the party wound down, Sarah took the elevator to the rooftop garden, another of Eco-Life's green initiatives. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, casting a magical glow over the city. She walked to the edge, where planters full of herbs and vegetables created a living barrier. Below, the city pulsed with life and possibility. She could see the building where she'd first pitched her business plan, the coffee shop where she'd conducted her first interviews, the park where she'd tested their initial products. Each location held a memory of growth, of overcoming, of becoming. The cool evening breeze carried the scent of the rooftop lavender, and Sarah closed her eyes, letting the moment wash over her. She wasn't just the woman who'd been locked in a car anymore. She wasn't defined by her ex-husband's actions or her past struggles. She was Sarah Chen, CEO of Eco-Life Solutions, mother, mentor, and creator of her own destiny. The door opened behind her, and Katie joined her at the railing. "Quite a view," she said softly. "Quite a journey," Sarah replied, opening her eyes to take in the cityscape again. She thought about the women who wrote to her daily, sharing their stories of survival and rebirth. They called her an inspiration, but the truth was, they inspired her. Every mother figuring out her next step, every woman starting over, every person choosing to believe in themselves. They were all part of this success story. The sky deepened to purple as Sarah stood there, breathing in the achievement of this milestone. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving, and bringing others along with her on the journey to success. Sarah adjusted the Women's Business Innovation Center sign hanging above the renovated warehouse entrance. The early morning sun caught the gold lettering, making it shimmer against the exposed brick. Inside, the space hummed with activity as her team made final preparations for the grand opening. "The workshop spaces are ready," Katie reported, tablet in hand. "We've got the startup incubator area set up with 20 workstations, the conference rooms are equipped with all the tech, and the daycare center passed its final inspection yesterday." Sarah ran her hand along one of the reclaimed wood tables in the common area. Each piece of furniture had been carefully selected from sustainable sources or local artisans, many of them women who'd built their own businesses from scratch. "The mentorship registration system is live," Jennifer added, joining them. "We already have 50 experienced business owners signed up to volunteer their time, and over 200 women have applied for guidance." The center represented everything Sarah had wished for during her darkest days. She remembered the loneliness of starting over, the uncertainty of those first steps toward independence. Now, she was creating a space where no woman would have to face those challenges alone. "The resource library is stocked," Marcus called from the mezzanine level. "Legal guides, business planning templates, funding source directories, everything a new entrepreneur needs to get started." Sarah climbed the industrial stairs to the second floor, taking in the view of the main space below. Sunlight streamed through the skylights, illuminating the motivational quotes painted on the walls, words from women who'd broken barriers and built empires. The childcare area caught her eye, its bright colors and safety features making it both welcoming and secure. She thought of all the mothers who'd be able to attend workshops and meetings, knowing their children were well cared for just steps away. "First group's arriving," Katie announced, checking her watch. Women began filtering through the doors, their expressions a mix of nervousness and excitement. Sarah recognized that look. She'd worn it herself not so long ago. They carried notebooks, laptops, and dreams bigger than their current circumstances. A young mother struggled with a stroller at the entrance. Sarah hurried down to help her, remembering her own pregnancy and the weight of uncertainty she'd carried then. "Welcome to the Innovation Center," Sarah smiled, holding the door. "I'm Sarah Chen." "I know who you are," the woman replied, eyes widening. "I followed your story in the news. You're the reason I finally left my toxic job to start my own business." "Let me show you to the child care center," Sarah offered, helping with the stroller. "Then we can talk about your business plan." More women arrived, filling the space with energy and possibility. Some clustered around the coffee bar, sharing ideas and contact information. Others explored the resources, asking questions about mentorship programs and funding opportunities. In the main presentation area, chairs filled quickly as women prepared for the opening ceremony. Sarah watched as strangers became connections, as tentative smiles turned into animated conversations. This was more than a business center. It was a community being born. Katie appeared at her side with a cup of tea, chamomile, their traditional celebration drink. "Ready for your speech?" Sarah nodded, taking in the scene before her. A woman in hijab was showing another her product samples. A group of 3 were huddled over a laptop, critiquing each other's websites. Near the resource library, a mentor was already deep in conversation with a mentee, both gesturing enthusiastically. This was what success truly looked like, not just personal achievement, but creating space for others to rise. Each woman in this room had a story, a dream, a potential waiting to be unleashed. The center would give them tools, knowledge, and most importantly, a community to support their journey. Sarah watched as more women continued to arrive, each one carrying the spark of possibility. This wasn't just about business, it was about transformation, about women supporting women, about building bridges instead of walls. As she observed the growing crowd, Sarah knew that this center would become a cornerstone of change, a place where women could turn their dreams into reality, just as she had done. Sarah sat in her office at the Innovation Center, reviewing applications from aspiring entrepreneurs when her phone buzzed. Noah's name appeared on the screen, a name she hadn't seen in months. Her finger hovered over the decline button, but something made her pause. "Sarah?" Noah's voice was quieter than she remembered. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from." She leaned back in her chair, gazing out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city skyline. "What do you need, Noah?" "I saw your interview last week, the one about the Innovation Center." He paused, clearing his throat. "You looked happy. Really happy." Sarah's eyes drifted to the framed magazine covers on her wall, her journey documented in glossy prints and bold headlines. "I am happy. I've been doing a lot of thinking," Noah continued, "about everything, about how I treated you, about who I was, who I became." His voice cracked slightly. "I lost sight of what was important. I got caught up in the money, the status, trying to maintain this image that wasn't even real." Sarah remained silent, letting him speak. Through the glass walls of her office, she could see women gathering for the afternoon mentorship session, their energy and determination visible even from a distance. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry for locking you in that car, for choosing Bianca, for not being the husband you deserved." Noah's words tumbled out. "I'm sorry for not celebrating our baby, for making you feel small when you were actually the strongest person I knew." A young mother walked past Sarah's office, balancing a laptop and a baby carrier. Sarah smiled and waved, remembering her own journey from that locked car to this moment. "I lost everything," Noah continued. "The money, the reputation, Bianca. But those aren't the losses that keep me up at night. It's losing you. Losing the family we could have had." Sarah touched her expanding belly gently. "Noah, I appreciate your apology. I really do. But I'm not that same person anymore. That night in the car, it changed everything." "I know," he said softly. "I can see that. You've built something amazing, something real." Through her office window, Sarah watched as women gathered in the common area, sharing ideas and supporting each other. The community she'd created was thriving, growing stronger each day. "I just wanted you to know that I understand now," Noah added. "I see what I threw away, and I'm truly sorry." Sarah took a deep breath. "Thank you for saying that. I hope you find your way, Noah. I really do." You too, Sarah. Although, he gave a sad laugh. It looks like you already have. I have, she agreed, her voice gentle but firm. I'm exactly where I need to be. Take care of yourself, Sarah, and, he hesitated, take care of our baby. I will, she promised. Goodbye, Noah. Sarah ended the call, feeling a surprising sense of lightness. She hadn't realized she'd been carrying the weight of their unresolved ending until this moment. Katie appeared in her doorway with a stack of papers. Everything okay? You look thoughtful. That was Noah, Sarah said, standing up and smoothing her dress. He called to apologize. Katie raised an eyebrow. And how do you feel about that? Sarah walked to the window, watching the bustling activity in the center below. Women were supporting each other, building dreams, creating futures. She'd found her purpose, her strength, her community. I feel at peace, she said simply. Like the final page of that chapter has finally turned. Katie smiled, understanding in her eyes. Ready for the afternoon session? We've got 15 new entrepreneurs waiting to learn from you. Sarah nodded, gathering her materials. She was ready. Ready to continue building, growing, and helping others find their own path to independence. Noah's call hadn't shaken her resolve. If anything, it had confirmed that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Sarah stared at the email on her screen, reading it for the third time. The message from Victoria Chen, CEO of Asia's largest women's business network, remained the same. Would like to discuss expanding your eco-friendly business model and women's entrepreneurship program across Asian markets. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her coffee. The morning sun streamed through her office windows, illuminating the busy community center below where women were already gathering for the day's workshops. Katie, she called out, her voice slightly shaky. Can you come in here for a minute? Katie appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. What's up? You look like you've seen a ghost. Sarah turned her screen around. Read this. Katie's eyes widened as she scanned the email. Sarah, this is huge. Asia-Pacific markets? That's millions of potential entrepreneurs we could help. I know, Sarah said, absently touching her growing belly. It's incredible and terrifying at the same time. The scale of it. She stood up and walked to the window, watching the women below. Some were practicing pitch presentations. Others were hunched over laptops working on business plans. Each one had a dream, just like she'd had when she'd first started. Remember when this was just an idea? Katie asked softly. Back when you were still locked in that car? Sarah finished, a wry smile on her face. Funny how life works out, isn't it? Her phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. She had a mentoring session in 10 minutes with a young mother starting her own sustainable clothing line. The woman reminded Sarah of herself, full of determination despite the obstacles. What are you thinking? Katie asked, joining her at the window. Sarah took a deep breath. I'm thinking about all the women like me out there, women who need someone to believe in them, to show them it's possible. She turned to Katie. But the logistics of expanding internationally, it's daunting. We'd need to understand different markets, cultures, regulations. True, Katie nodded. But look at what you've built here. The model works. Women supporting women, practical business education, sustainable practices. These are universal needs. Sarah walked back to her desk, picking up a recent photo of her community center's graduating class. 25 women, all now running their own successful businesses. She'd helped them find their strength, just as she'd found hers. Set up a video call with Victoria, she said decisively. Let's at least hear what she has in mind. Katie grinned. Already did. She's available tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. our time. Sarah laughed. You knew I'd say yes, didn't you? I knew you'd at least want to explore it, Katie replied. It's who you are now. someone who sees opportunities and goes after them. Sarah sat back down at her desk, her mind already racing with possibilities. She opened her laptop and began researching Asian markets, making notes about cultural considerations and business practices. The next morning, Sarah arrived early to prepare for the video call. She'd spent half the night reviewing Victoria's company profile and drafting questions. As she waited for the call to connect, she felt a familiar mix of excitement and nervousness, the same feeling she'd had when she'd first decided to start her own business. Victoria's face appeared on the screen, warm and professional. "Sarah, thank you for making the time to talk." "Thank you for reaching out," Sarah replied. "I'm very interested in hearing more about your vision for expansion." As Victoria outlined her proposal, Sarah's excitement grew. The plan was comprehensive, starting with Singapore and gradually expanding to other major Asian cities. Victoria's network would provide local expertise and connections, while Sarah's model would offer the framework for success. "Your story resonates with women everywhere," Victoria explained. "We need this kind of program in Asia. Women here are hungry for opportunities to become entrepreneurs, to create sustainable businesses." Sarah thought about her journey, from feeling trapped in that car to sitting here, discussing international expansion. She thought about all the women who needed the same chance she'd had to rebuild their lives. "I want to do this," Sarah said firmly. "Let's make it happen." Victoria's face lit up. "Wonderful. I'll have my team draft the preliminary agreements. We could potentially launch in Singapore within 6 months." "I'd like that," Sarah smiled. "There are so many women out there waiting for their chance. Let's help them find it." Sarah stepped onto the stage of the Global Women's Leadership Summit, her heels clicking against the polished wood. The spotlight caught her emerald dress, making it shimmer as she approached the podium. 3,000 faces looked up at her, waiting. Her heart thundered in her chest, but her hands remained steady as she adjusted the microphone. "2 years ago," she began, her voice clear and strong, "I found myself locked in a car outside my own home. My husband had left me there, pregnant and alone, while he walked away with another woman." A ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd. Sarah paused, letting the weight of those words settle. "That moment could have broken me. Maybe it should have." She touched her pendant, a habit she'd developed when speaking about difficult memories. Instead, it became the catalyst for everything you see today. The giant screens behind her displayed images of her community center, filled with women working, learning, and supporting each other. Photos of successful graduates flashed by, each representing a story of transformation. When I broke free from that car, I wasn't just escaping a bad situation. I was breaking free from every limitation I'd accepted, every dream I'd put aside, every time I'd made myself smaller to make someone else feel bigger. Sarah moved away from the podium, walking across the stage with measured steps. Her voice grew stronger, more passionate. We often talk about glass ceilings in business, but sometimes the hardest barriers to break are the ones we build ourselves. The ones that whisper, "You can't," or "You shouldn't," or "What will people think?" She gestured to the screens, now showing statistics about women-owned businesses and their impact on communities. Last year, our centers helped launch over 300 sustainable businesses. 87% of them are still growing strong. Behind each of those numbers is a woman who dared to believe in herself, who found her voice, who refused to let anyone lock her in, literally or figuratively. Sarah paused, making eye contact with different sections of the audience. She saw tears in some eyes, fierce determination in others. Tomorrow, we sign the papers to expand into Asia. What started in one community center will soon reach across continents. But this isn't about building an empire. It's about building bridges. It's about reaching back to help the next woman up. The screens shifted to show women from different countries, all sharing their stories of transformation through Sarah's program. Every woman who walks through our doors has her own car moment, that point where she decides enough is enough. Our job isn't to rescue them. It's to hand them the tools they need to rescue themselves. Sarah's hand drifted to her stomach, remembering the fear and uncertainty she'd felt that night. Now her daughter was a toddler, growing up watching her mother build something meaningful. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about taking those moments that could destroy you and using them as foundation stones instead. The audience leaned forward as Sarah's voice softened, becoming more intimate despite the large venue. I stand here today not as a victim who survived, but as a woman who chose to thrive. Every one of you has that same power within you. The power to take your own car moment and transform it into fuel for your journey. She straightened her shoulders, her voice rising with conviction. We are not defined by the doors that close in our faces, but by the ones we open for ourselves and others. We are not limited by our past experiences, but liberated by the lessons they teach us. Sarah's words rang through the convention center, strong and clear. This is what true empowerment looks like, not waiting for someone to give you permission to succeed, but granting that permission to yourself. The audience began to rise, first a few, then dozens, then hundreds, until the entire hall was on its feet. The applause thundered through the space, growing louder and louder. Sarah stood at the center of the stage, taking in the sea of faces before her. Each person represented a potential catalyst for change, a future success story waiting to unfold.